Okay, hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for coming out today. Really excited about this talk. We usually like to have speakers that kind of cover what's happening right now in the news, and the big thing the last couple of weeks has been these lightning applications we've been hearing so much about are suddenly here. There's a bunch of them. But you know how to use them, it's very confusing. There's new wallets, a lot of it's just still testnet, and a lot of very brave souls doing it on LiveNet as well. So we're going to go ahead and get into that. The talk's going to be focused from kind of a user's perspective, end user, ordinary people, how can you kind of get involved, and we'll kind of go over some stories on that. I do want to really quick thank our space, Digital Garage, for this just excellent facility, letting us use it. They have some of the helpers around to get a round of applause for them. Very, very much appreciated. Been a long-term partner. We've been doing events here for quite a while. Before we get started, we're going to do a couple of quick lightning talks. It's just people have about a minute to kind of talk about what they're working on. So without further ado, Ethan.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Ethan. I work for an on-demand education marketplace platform. Tomorrow we're going to be unveiling this platform at our offices at Spaces. We left a few small brochures for you to come check out. But our goal is to make higher education affordable again. So our whole platform is going to be based on blockchain. We're going to be doing an end-to-end process of what we're going to be doing, all the different use cases. So we really appreciate if you guys come and check us out, and hopefully we'll see you there.
When is it?
It's going to be tomorrow from 5:30 to 8:30. And we're going to have a nice catered networking session along with a panel discussion from a few other blockchain professionals. Thank you.
Aaron, please.
Right here for the camera. Thank you. Good evening, Aaron Cole here with Stooky's Club Moderns. I don't really have a big project except that we make cocktails. We're the only bar in San Francisco, to my knowledge, that takes Bitcoin. We also are now taking Litecoin and Ethereum. And we do a happy hour for this meetup group on the third Wednesday of every month. So mark your calendar, check out the meetup calendar for that. Starts at 6:30, goes till 10. It's totally unstructured. And when you're there, if you pay with crypto, you get $1 off your beer and wine and $2 off cocktails for those things that are where you spend that. So, and don't forget to tip the bartender.
There's usually a couple of restaurants placed around here that accept your Bitcoin, and now we got the Stookies is the if you want to spend your Bitcoin in person, you want to get some drinks, it's the place to go. Please, Christopher.
My name is Christopher Allen, formerly of Blockstream, co-author of SSL-TLS. I am involved in the W3C credentials community, and we have been creating some new standards around decentralized human rights identity, sometimes called self-sovereign identity. We are having a hackathon on July 16th, the week. It's virtual, online, although I'm going to try to find some co-working space, or maybe somebody like DG or whatever would be willing to donate some space as well. But the idea is that week we would work on the BTCR, Bitcoin-centric method for DIDs. There's a couple of videos online if you want to see kind of what the high level of what BTCR is all about. There is a beginning of a spec. We actually have a playground on GitHub where you can do it on testnet with test coins. But we'd like to do a lot more. For instance, it's designed to be compatible with Lightning. Every Lightning node is a public key that could be used also to sign various reputation claims, other different types of things. We'd love to have some people that are more current with Lightning and might want to play around with BTCR and Lightning. There are a lot of other opportunities. We also meet online in the credentials community every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. if you want to be involved in the standards effort. So that's credentials community, the W3C, for more information.
Great, thank you, Christopher. And finally, Tom Guy.
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Tongai Choto. I'm from Bitmari. We are a remittance service from all over the world to Zimbabwe. So I don't know if you probably have come across one of our videos around March. We launched the first remittance transaction from Nigeria to Zimbabwe using the Lightning Network. So ever since then, we've been developing towards that so that everyone else in the world can be able to remit using the Lightning Network. So yeah, I'm just here to tell you that if anyone is interested, please come talk to me, because this week we are launching we're going live with the platform to send money to Zimbabwe using the Lightning Network. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of our Lightning Talk speakers. I'm sorry, we have one more?
No, can you just give those away for me? Some hats in there.
Oh, there's some hats. We'll have them over here by the beer. Please slide. So on the live stream for this, I went ahead and named it Lightning to the People. And Alex actually let me know a little while ago that he was calling the talk the same thing already. So I think that's probably pretty fitting. We both decided on the same title for it. So with that, please welcome up Alex Bosworth.
Hi, thanks for having me. So yeah, I wanted to talk about using the Lightning Network. So I've talked previously about kind of like developing on it. So I wanted to kind of give it some coverage of what it's like to actually join into the Lightning Network, be a user of it, what's the current state of it, and what's the philosophy behind it. I've been working as a Lightning app developer, working with building Lightning projects since 2017. I was working at a company called BitGo last year, and I was working on Lightning integration there. And then at the beginning of this year, I started working on some of my own Lightning projects, and I left BitGo working on this project called Submarine Swaps. So I think I should start talking about Lightning by saying, like, why do we even want Lightning? Like, what's the point of it? And the point of Lightning is the same kind of point as Bitcoin, which is that we want to minimize our counterparty risk. You know, that's kind of the idea of the whole cryptocurrency, of the whole founding principle of Bitcoin, is that we want to make sure that we have a certain set of rules out there, that we're not depending on some other guy, some state to say, here is what this dollar is worth. So we want to make sure that we can check that the supply is what we think it is. We want to make sure that when we're getting money that, you know, somebody else isn't also getting the same money that, you know, at the same time. And we want to make sure that if there are smart contracts, so like if there are relationships that we have with other people, that we're able to minimize our trust in terms of the money by saying that the rules about how we work with other people are described in validation that we can do ourselves. So that's like a super important principle of Bitcoin, and that's something also that we want to like preserve in Lightning. And the second part of that is that we want to be able to actually own our own money. So we want to have our own private keys, and we want to make sure that we can spend money however we want to, that we're not going through a gating service, somebody who can tell us that, you know, you're not allowed to send money here, or your money's frozen because we don't like you. Like, we want to make sure that this is an open system, that this is a system where we're in control. So we kind of ran into some problems because we were too successful. So as Bitcoin grew, people realized, oh, there's all sorts of limitations of Bitcoin. I want to have like instant sends, and I want to send everything for free, and I wanted to do a million different smart contracts. And there's a lot of different proposals of how we could deal with that, how we can offer that kind of features. And so one proposal was like, what if we just like had a bunch of people who we think are important, like Roger Ver and stuff, and they all get together and they decide the consensus rules. And that's one possibility. So that like let's get rid of the validation. And another idea was like, let's say instead of having everybody validate, we just appoint some validators, and they like maybe they're big stakeholders, or maybe you voted them in or something like that. That's another strategy. And these strategies can work if you accept that you don't really want the reduced counterparty trust. And they can offer the similar features to what we can achieve with Lightning in terms of speed, but they can't offer the features that we want out of Bitcoin, which are minimized counterparty trust. And so what you usually get with these other solutions is you say, oh, well, just download this thin wallet, and you can trust the server. The server's going to do all the validation. Or people say, use a custodial wallet, and then because the trades are just a SQL transfer, then they'll just go instantly, just like you wanted them to. So what we're doing with Lightning is saying, no, we don't want to go down that path. We want to go down a path where we can maintain the trust minimization that we wanted in Bitcoin from the start, but and we want to maintain the same guarantees that we have with Bitcoin in terms of that we can validate that the supply is what we think it is, that we can validate the smart contracts, and we can use, in order to do that, we can say, let's take off some of the jobs that the blockchain is doing, and let's do them separately on a different system. And let's say that one of the jobs that the blockchain does is it says that there's like a certain fixed supply, and we validate that, and that's not that hard of a job. We can just monitor every block that comes in and say, oh, the supplies looks good, that's fine. And so we don't really need to offload that task. That's a task that already kind of works. And there's another great task that the blockchain does, which is it says, if there's a dispute between me and somebody who I'm working with, let's just give it up to the people. So let's just broadcast the state of our relationship, and as long as everybody else can see the proof, they'll be able to kind of mediate that for us. And then the thing that we're going to take out is we're going to take out the part which is like the database part of the blockchain, which is like every single potential transaction between every single person. That's not something that the blockchain really needs to cover, because we can do that a different way with Lightning. And that will allow us to have lots of different features that we want, like for it to be fast, for it to be cheap, for it to be more private. So the way that Lightning works, it's kind of important to understand some of the basics of Lightning. So if you've used Bitcoin, you kind of know that there are certain concepts, core concepts you need to think about. Like if you get a seed, well, what does that seed mean? It means you've got some keys, and what are the keys? The keys represent kind of your authority to spend their money. So Lightning has some similar core concepts that you have to think about and understand. And one of the biggest core concepts is this idea of payment channels. And payment channels are a way to scale Bitcoin that people have thought about for a long, long time, and they're not too complicated. What they basically mean is if me and one of my peers want to exchange value between each other, we can use an unconfirmed transaction, and we can just update that unconfirmed transaction and never broadcast it to the blockchain. And as long as we can just keep updating that transaction, we can say, oh, this guy I have $5, and now I've reduced that by 1, and now I have $4, and he has $1. So that's a great concept that people thought about how we can apply that to Bitcoin, but it was never really turned into a product. It wasn't really turned into a working project. But it's important to understand that in a channel you have a two-sided balance. So if you open up a channel, it's not just that you have a certain amount that you can send back and forth. When you open up the channel, you have a balance that's a local balance, and you have a balance that's a remote balance. So you can only send as much as you have on your local balance, and you can only receive as much as you have on the remote balance. So the other important building block of the Lightning Network is the concept called HTLC. So what HTLC is it's very similar to a normal Bitcoin address, in that you send money, and the person that you're sending money to is represented by a key, by their public key, and that's what you're doing when you're sending to an address. You're just sending to the hash of their public key. And when they go and spend that money that you sent them, they just reveal a signature that corresponds to that public key, and then the network says, great, that's you, you're allowed to spend the money. So HTLC adds on a new condition, which is this thing called the payment hash. And when you attach the payment hash to the public key, it says first you need to make sure that you have an appropriate signature. But also, you need to know a secret pre-image that corresponds to this payment hash. And if you don't know the secret, even if your signature is good, you won't be able to spend the money. So when I'm sending you an HTLC, I'm still sending it to your normal key, but I'm adding an extra condition which says you need to know the secret and prove that you know the secret. And then the final component, HTLC, stands for hash time lock contract, and the final component is the time lock. So let's say that I send you this money, and you never figure out the secret. If you never figure out the secret, then I can take the money back in the time lock. So I say, you have until maybe tomorrow to take the money to yourself, to figure out the secret. And if you don't, then I get the money back. So this is kind of like how money is sent in the Lightning Network, is I send it to you, but you need to know the secret in order to take it for yourself. And if you don't, I'm going to get the money back. So this allows Lightning Network to create a routed network. So one problem with payment channels is that we would have had to create payment channels with everybody in the world, and every single pair of people would have to create channels with each other, and that wasn't a scalable solution. So since we have this HTLC construct, I can go to my peer and I can say, I'm going to send you some money, and it's going to be locked to your key, but it will be also locked to the secret. And I can tell the person that I'm sending the money to, I can say, well, you can't actually get this money because it's locked to a secret, but I know this other person, and this other person knows the secret. So why don't you make the same HTLC that I just made to you, but you make it to him, and you can send him a little bit less. So that way you get a little bit more when he reveals the secret, and it was worth your time to help me route my payment to get to him. So this means that you don't have to have channels with everybody in the world. You can, as long as you can set up a chain of those relationships based on the secret, you can send to anybody. And this is something that if you want to play around with the Lightning Network, this is a service that you can provide. So if you run a Lightning node, you can tell other people. You can say, I'm willing to route some payments for you. And then if they choose you, if you're in the middle of a pathway that they want to go along, you can make some money. So another cool feature of the Lightning Network is that the entire protocol is kind of being upgraded. So in Bitcoin, when you send money, a lot of times you have to get this address, and then you have to get an amount. You have to copy the address, then paste it, copy the amount, and then paste that. And then you have to check the address. Oh, is it really the right address? So in Lightning, they have a new format for how to send money, which is called the invoice. And the invoice has lots of cool things. So number one, it's signed by your destination. So if you've sent to them before, you know that you're sending it to them again because you can verify their signature on the invoice. Another thing it has is that it has an amount baked in there. So you don't need to copy the amount and the address. You just copy the invoice. That's it. Another thing it has a description of the payment. And so you even have a proof that what you're buying is signed by the merchant. And another cool thing it has is hop hints. So let's say you don't know how to get to the merchant. You don't know how to pay them because you need to figure out a set of hops in order to pay them. Well, the invoice itself can have some hop hints in there that can tell you oh, these people can actually, if you use these people, you can route through them and then pay me, and that's all baked into the invoice. And another cool feature of the Lightning Network is that when you're sending funds, you're not really revealing yourself the amount of money that you have. So if you're sending funds on the chain, a lot of times you're actually revealing the amount of money that you have. So if I have $1 million UTXO and I send my buddy $5, he can be like, oh, I took a look at your UTXO and you had $1 million. You just gave me $5, so why am I buying beer? So in Lightning, you can say, no, I just routed through a certain number of people, and because the route is all encrypted, it doesn't reveal who is actually doing the ultimate send. If you kind of think about the fundamentals, I think one great way to to actually learn more about how the Lightning Network works is to actually just try it. Try all the software that people are building for the Lightning Network. And there's a lot of different wallets. L&D has a cool wallet in development, and I've even got a very basic wallet. But one of the wallets that I'm most excited about is this wallet from Jack Mallers called the Zap wallet. And he's really thinking about, like from the ground up, thinking about a new wallet experience that's based on the properties of the Lightning Network. And so you can go and download that. It's for testnet. And I've made another wallet which is good for if you want to just try out Lightning very quickly. You can go to this website, htlc.me. I'll even give you some free testnet coins to play around with. And it's a web wallet. You don't need any software or anything. And you can go to all the testnet services, and you can just paste in the invoice that you see on those services and use this website, and you'll be able to send money to them. And you can even receive money. So if you make a new invoice and maybe you make some testnet coins, you'll be able to receive money into your htlc.me wallet, but on testnet only. So there's also a lot of cool mobile wallets. So L&D is also working on a mobile wallet. There's like RawTX. There's a lot of cool wallets out there. CoinClip, a lot of cool wallets you can try out. Zap has also a mobile wallet. They're doing some really interesting things about like integrating with iMessage, thinking forward about how like payments can really be seamless and instant with the Lightning Network. So I'd recommend if you've got iPhone or Android, join their community. They've got a Slack. They've got some test code up there. So try that out. So a major project that I'm also working on that you can try on testnet is this idea of cross-chain swaps that bridge the on-chain world with the off-chain world. So like, let's say you don't even have a Lightning wallet. You haven't installed a Lightning wallet, but you want to pay a Lightning invoice. So I can set up an HTLC so that you can spend money from your normal wallet to pay Lightning invoices. And the chains don't have to be the same. So you can pay, and I'll show a video of this. So like, let's say I wanted to deposit money into my HTLC.me wallet. And this does not accept chain deposits. You can only send it Lightning payments, and only in Bitcoin. So I can go over to the Submarine Swap website, and I can say, oh, I want to pay this invoice. But you know what? I only have on-chain Litecoin, and I want to pay this Bitcoin invoice. So what this website will do is it will set up an HTLC with using that same secret and timeout system, and it will say, I'm going to set up an HTLC on the Litecoin chain. And it's going to say, I'm going to send money to your key, but you're also going to know the secret. And the secret is going to be the same secret that's in that invoice. So whenever you pay a Lightning invoice, you get the secret revealed to you that proves that you paid that payment. And that secret and that hash that's in the invoice are the same secret and hash that I talked about in the HTLC originally. So what I'm doing now is I'm just using a normal wallet, a normal web wallet from BitGo, and to send testnet Litecoins to this address, and the address is just an HTLC. And so I've just sent the coins on the Litecoin chain. Now I wait a little bit have to wait for it to confirm. I've kind of sped it up here, but once it's confirmed, then the server says, okay, great, I've got some funds locked to me, and they're locked to that secret, and now I'll do the work. I'll send the money off the chain on the Lightning Network for you, and you never even needed to use a Lightning wallet to even pay Lightning invoices.
So, how does it work under the hood? Like,
I'll answer questions at the end, but yeah, it's
apologies.
sure. I'll give another demo of like kind of the same concept, but from another perspective. So one perspective of submarine swaps is that you can be a user of them. So you can say, I don't want to. I'm too scared to use the Lightning Network, but I'll use my normal. But I want to pay Lightning invoices. So you can go at it from that perspective. But you can also go from another perspective, which is that I'm ready to use the Lightning Network, and I want to help other people use. I want to help other people use the Lightning Network, and I want to charge fees for that. So here's an example of like how you could make this website to say, I'll help you pay. You can use a chain or whatever chain you want, and I'll help you pay those Lightning invoices. So in this example, I want to give like a tip to this author of this website, and I want to give him a little tip, but I don't have a Lightning wallet. So I go to this website, LightPay, and it generates a HTLC for me, which is just a normal Bitcoin address. It's just a pay to script hash address. And I can use my normal wallet to just pay to that script address. And I've locked the funds to him, and he says, great, you've locked the funds to me. So now I want to get that free image so I can claim the funds. And so he pays the invoice for me. And so you can act on both sides of that equation. So you can provide liquidity for other people in order to help them pay Lightning invoices, or you can use one of these services in order to help you pay Lightning invoices. And that's, so the submarineswaps.org, that's a live website. You can actually try that right now. You can use Litecoin and Bitcoin to pay testnet invoices. Okay, so I've kind of talked about testnet, but a lot of people think the real action is on mainnet, and it's a little bit early. There's all sorts of things that really need to be worked out, but you can do it, and it is fun. But before, I just want to kind of like give an overview of all the different problems that you might run into on mainnet Lightning. And some of these problems will not go away, and some of these problems will just be mitigated in the future. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the time lock. So, in the demos, I've kind of shown what happens in the success case. What happens if you pay and then everything goes great? But what happens if things don't go great? In that case, then you have your money locked in time lock. And so you have to wait until that expiration time comes. And in certain cases in the Lightning Network, you're going to have your funds just locked in the time lock, and you won't be able to access them. And that's kind of a configurable setting, but there's pros and cons of changing that setting to be longer or shorter. So that's something to be prepared for. And especially in the early days of Lightning, the time locks will probably be longer because we want to be more conservative about the lack of tools. Another thing to be thinking about is that if you use the Lightning Network on mainnet, you have to kind of think about the fact that other people can try to claim the money that they sent to you, but they never sent it to you. And in that case, we have to go to the chain. We have to use the chain for what the chain's good for. We have to say, there's a dispute. Me and my peer have a disagreement about who has what balance. And the chain is really good at that. It can say, well, let's just give the evidence to everybody in the world, and they can all check, and we can see that the evidence says that you have this balance. But if you're not around, that's why we have this time lock. If you're not around to challenge it, and you're not around to publish evidence to the blockchain, then they can't actually get away with that attack. So there are some features planned in terms of outsourcing this task to other people, but right now if you go on mainnet, you should be checking every once in a while to make sure that nobody's trying this on you. And the other thing to think about is that they might not even be trying on purpose to take the money back. It's possible if you are creating a backup of your data directory, in current clients, there is no way to outsource the backup of your funds. So in a payment channel, it's your responsibility to remember how much money you have in that payment channel. And that's not something that's like, we've taken that responsibility away from the chain and said that's now your responsibility. You know how much money you have. But what if you lose that data? And that's possible with the current clients because we don't have amazing backup solutions yet. So if you're using mainnet, you should be thinking about the fact that if you lose your data, you can actually lose some money. And that's another problem that can be mitigated over time, but currently that's in kind of like formational state. Another thing to think about using mainnet is the fact that you might not actually save on fees right away. In fact, you might actually spend more on fees because we're still working things out. We're still closing channels all the time. We're still making new channels. People are playing around with things. The network is still in a formational, is still forming. And there's plenty of channel closes. And although fees are very low right now, it's possible that a fee spike can happen. So you shouldn't go into Lightning on mainnet and thinking, oh, I'm going to save so much money on fees, unless you're doing like 1 million transactions with somebody like every day. So you'll have to change fees. Another thing to think about is that the feature of the public ID, that's a good feature and a bad feature. So in one sense, it's great that you can, if you send money to a merchant, that the next time you send it to him, it's the same merchant. So it shows as the same person. That makes sense. But what if you are trying to protect your identity and you're doing a withdrawal from one exchange and then you go to another exchange and you do the same withdrawal? Well, you have a consistent public key too. I mean, you can create more keys, but you have to think about the fact that you have an identity that's not going to change whenever you receive money. And finally, the pending HTLCs is another thing that is related to the time lock. So if you, every time you send money, the money actually goes into an indeterminate state. So if things go wrong, if there's errors, which there can be on the current mainnet, you might have money that's stuck in this pending state. Okay, with that being said, there's amazing, cool apps that you can try out on mainnet and cool, fun features. One app that I have heard people love is this app called the Bitcoin Lightning Wallet, BLW, or Lightning Wallet for Android, which has a weird name, but you can go to lightning-wallet.com to get it. And so that's an Android wallet that you can use to send and receive on mainnet, and the author of it is very involved in trying to make it super usable right away. Another thing you can do once you get on mainnet is you can play around with like all these apps. I mean, people are making apps every day. People are creating tons of different ideas, and one of the coolest ideas is this concept of like the place, the Reddit the place that they've cloned, and they said, let's have like a collaborative art project where we can like mess around with an open canvas and anybody can play with it. And there's no user logins. There's no nobody's saying well you can scroll on this wall. It's just open graffiti, and every time you change a pixel, it costs 1 Satoshi. So basically, the minimum that you can spend, that's how much it costs to draw on this wall. And so you can get started with that once you load up your mainnet wallet. You can try that out. Another cool way to try out Lightning right away is that whole website. It's had a lot of activity. People have really slammed that website to paint all sorts of weird graffiti on there. But all that time, that whole website, that whole node was running on a $50 computer, like a single board computer. It's a little bit pumped up, but like the basics of how to run a node only requires a very minimal set of investment in terms of like you can, once you open channels and once you've got your node synced, that doesn't require a huge capital requirement. It doesn't require you to have like some beefy server or something. And if you Google the Fundroid, there's actually like a full guide in the Odroid magazine about how you can, what components you're going to need to get one of these computers like up and running, and it's cheap and easy. Looks cheap and easy.
So the computer only costs $54, but how much can you prune the Bitcoin chain? Is it right?
I mean that should be an all-in-one. Like if you go look at Fundroid guide, it should have everything. Another cool thing you can do that you can go out and do on mainnet right away is you can go to the site Bitrefill, and I've used it since I could basically use mainnet, which is to recharge your phone with more phone money. It works like in every country around the world, Pakistan, whatever. And all you do is you just fill in your number, and it gives you a Lightning invoice, and you pay it, and boom, that's it. Your phone bill is paid. And they also sell like Steam credits, so you can buy your Steam games. They sell Reddit Gold. They have all sorts of different products on there that you can kind of recharge. And you can use Lightning to do that. And they even support Lightning with Litecoin. Another fun thing to try out is, I made this, I was working on kind of like a point of sale concept for Lightning. And I talked to this guy who has a coffee shop, and he said, just give me like something very simple that I can just type in how much I want to charge and make an invoice. So I made this very simple flow, which just types in how much money you want to charge, and then creates an invoice. And so that actually was deployed, and you can actually go to Palo Alto right now, or tomorrow, and buy a cup of coffee, and you can use Lightning to pay for it.
I want that.
Okay, so another cool app is one that I made called yalls.org, and the idea of this is it's like a paywall for articles. So if you want to continue reading the articles or read some comments, you need to pay 1 penny. And here I'm showing using the Zap wallet to use the site, and the Zap wallet has a feature where it says I'm going to whitelist kind of a destination. And if I whitelist this destination, I'm not going to ask a million times for people to confirm the payment. When they pay, so if you're looking, he's going to make the payment right now, that's it. The payment just happened. And that's possible because the Lightning invoices are instant, and because you have a consistent public key, and because that can be integrated right at the OS level. So he's posting a comment. He's got his comment ready. Post a comment. That's it. That happens as fast as as faster than my database can go. So a lot of this, what we currently have with Lightning on the mainnet and on testnet, are kind of like toys, are things that people are kind of experimenting with, building out. It's not, this is kind of like a process that's been in place, that's been ongoing for years, but now we're finally getting our hands on it. We're going to need to try it out. But it's really just the beginning. And there's a lot of cool things that will be available that, I kind of want to show, like, here's the network a little while ago about what the growth of the network is like. So people are spawning up nodes, people are making channels, connections are growing and growing. And right now we're like in a formative stage of the network. And here's like a 3D model of all the different channels and all the different people who are connected to each other. And you can see, like, this is a while ago, so it's just growing and growing. There's mainnet YALs on there. So some of the cool apps that could be made in the future, one idea is this idea of atomic probabilistic payment. So the actual base payment in Lightning is below 1 Satoshi. It's actually 1,000th of 1 Satoshi. And the way that that can actually be achieved is by using this protocol called probabilistic payments, where you and your peer negotiate about how much you're going to send in a probabilistic way. So instead of sending 1,000th of 1 Satoshi that cannot settle to the chain, instead I send him 1,000th of a chance at 1 Satoshi. And that can be done in a way, there's a protocol for doing that, that is planned for the Lightning Network in the future, which means that I can now trade, 500th out of 1,000 chance at 1 Satoshi. And it doesn't have to be 1 Satoshi. It can actually be, you can have a 50% chance at $10. And so that's something that can actually be built in a way that you don't have to trust the other person is actually giving you that chance. But that's a chance that's just inherent in the protocol. So you can go out to anybody in the network who's willing to provide you that service and say, I want to just start gambling, basically. Another interesting feature that could be built on the Lightning Network is this idea called HTLC dash payments. So if you've seen in the HTLC construction, what you have is this secret and a hash. And so whenever you do the payment, you pay to the secret and you pay to the hash and the public key. And the hash corresponds to the secret. And what if the secret actually weren't just random data? What if it actually were data that you cared about? What if it actually were tiny components of a major file that you were interested in? And that's a way that you can go out to people and say, I want to download some information from you. And because you have the hash, the people that you're downloading from can take that hash and construct and merge it with a bunch of different hashes, just like we have with SPV mode in Bitcoin to prove that a transaction is present in a block without revealing the entire contents of the block. We can do the same thing with small bits of data, and we can allow downloads to be, you to offer downloads or you to get downloads without having people having to trust each other. Another cool thing that isn't quite in the protocol yet, quite available yet, is the idea of streaming payments. So, if you want to rent something. So on the Satoshi's place, that's something where you can pay one Satoshi and get 1 pixel. But what I wanted to do is I actually wanted to run a game on the pixels. So I wanted to rent out a piece of the game, and I wanted to say I want a piece of the map of the pixels, and I wanted to run a game on those pixels. And so the way that I achieved that is I wrote a bot to pay on a loop to move the game board around in the way that I wanted to on his site. So I would generate invoices for. I would ask him for invoices for how I wanted to change the game board. Then I would make the moves that I wanted to see made, and then I would continually push the data to change the pixels on his game board. And so streaming payments can be used in all sorts of different ways. Like instead of paying a subscription fee, you can just pay as you use it and then stop using it. So there's a lot of cool ideas that can be made in the future on that. And then another crazy cool thing that's being worked on is this idea that you can tie in Oracle data into your payments. So if you've seen the Chicago Mercantile Exchange has this idea that they can trade a bunch of Bitcoin, but they're actually not going to ever touch Bitcoin. They're going to settle in fiat. And so they're going to basically settle in the price of Bitcoin. And that allows them to trade Bitcoin and dollars with each other without having to actually deal with Bitcoin. But we can do the same thing in reverse with the Oracle contingent payments. So that's something Taj Dryja, who's actually kind of like the author of the Lightning Network paper originally, he's now working on this concept, which is that you can add in these one oracle or multiple oracles who are testing to facts, like the price of Bitcoin, and then you can pay people based on those incoming facts. And the interesting thing about that is that the people who are publishing the facts don't have to be a party to your trade. They can just be neutral parties who are just attesting to the fact that the Bitcoin price is this at this moment. So, you know, this is kind of like a user-focused talk, thinking about like how we can actually play around with it right away. But I would actually like encourage people who like are developers and maybe not, you know, Bitcoin developers to just like try out Lightning, because it's actually a fun experience that, like, you know, isn't too intimidating. It's not that hard. And LND is a cool way that you can actually start building apps on. And I've got like an NPM package that, you know, in a few different lines, you can start making your own Satoshi's Place and selling your own pixels or doing your own amazing ideas. Also, the submarine swaps, all that code base, I've also open sourced that, so you can play around with that. Start to offer, you know, swaps for different types of swaps. And if you're developing on Lightning, a cool thing about it is you get instant feedback. So let's say you make a change to your app and you want to see what it looks like. Like on Bitcoin or on a chain, you like send a transaction and then you wait for it to be confirmed. Because it's not confirmed, you have to wait in the pending state for a while. But on Lightning, you don't have this like user flow. You make a change in your app and then you try it out and then that's it. There's no waiting times. So it can be a lot of fun to make these apps, and you don't necessarily need to even support the chain. So like you can't buy one pixel on Satoshi's Place using the chain. It makes it pretty easy. And you can follow me on Twitter for, like, there's all sorts of new stuff going on with Lightning all the time, so I'm trying to post about that. All right, that's it. Thank you.
All right, so that's very loud. We're going to go to Q&A, so I'm going to walk around with the mic. I think I want to turn this thing down a little bit. And if you just wait your turn, raise your hand, get my attention, we'll go down the list and just ask some questions. Who do we have first? All right.
What do you think about doing testnet Lightning on a virtual machine or something like that, like a Minode or whatever? They have $10 free first month thing on there.
I mean, I used to run y'all's on a $5 a month service, and it worked fine. Like, the only reason I would go up to a higher, like even spend money on a BP node would be that just if you're doing development, you want things to go a bit faster. So if you're running on like one of these single board computers, sometimes you have to have like another, like your laptop or something to load up the chain or to, you know, recompile or things like that. So the small node can run the things, but it's not the best for rapid development.
How big can you do it with how much? You don't need a full node. You can do it with the current node.
So if you want to run with the current implementations, you need a node that has the full blockchain data. It does not need to have transaction index, but it needs to be able to query the blocks. And that's the reason for that is because what happens if you turn off the Lightning node, but the blockchain goes and syncs to the tip of the chain? In that case, you might lose some of the information that's important that you needed to see in the blocks. So that's the reason why pruning mode isn't supported currently. If there's a way where we could say, no, the blockchain cannot ever lose some notification data that it needs to provide to the Lightning node, then pruning can be supported.
Hi. Alex, thanks for a very interesting talk. Also loving the style of the slide deck. Quick question regarding the swaps. You've shown an example where a fee was 1.49%, if I remember correctly. That's comparable to the likes of Coinbase and stuff. And I'm wondering how, first, it works under the hood for the source of coins that you swap. And second is if you anticipate the fees to go down over time.
Oh, yeah. In the demo, I was just showing on testnet. So it's a contrived example that only uses testnet Litecoins for testnet Lightning Bitcoins. But that feature that I've added is something that the users, it's up to the users how much they want to charge. So if you wanted to undercut somebody and offer, a discount service for swapping, you can do that. I don't anticipate the fees going that low, because what is the swap person going to do? They're probably going to offload your trade to an exchange. So as soon as somebody comes in and does a Litecoin and Bitcoin trade, they'll probably just use their best exchange account that has the best rate and then just swap the trade there. So it'll probably be something more like local Bitcoins, where you're paying a bit of a premium for not having to set up an exchange account and not having to deal with all the problems of an exchange. And it will probably have also a similar effect in terms of the pricing, that the pricing will just be as far above the exchange pricing as people are willing to swap their coins. The only exception I can see to that is the fact that people actually might have interest in changing the capacity on their channels. So if I'm a merchant, I actually am, as I'm making money, I'm filling up my channel, and eventually I'll run out of capacity unless I spend some money out of the channel. Because remember, channels have two balances. They have a local and remote. So in that case, I might want to run one of these services and offer a very nice rate, because what I want to be doing is I want to be paying out other people so that not all the balance is coming my way all the time. And that will help balance the channel, and I'll give a nice rate for that.
Question back here.
Yeah. Hi. Kind of going off that. Let's say in the future there's tons of swaps or people running Lightning nodes. How do you think that's gonna the dynamic with miners charging fees, or I'm just trying to think, how is that gonna play out? Are the Lightning node owners going to be competing with miners for fees, or?
Yeah, I think that there will be some competition there, but I would say that I would actually expect chain fees to go up, and that's one thing that I even said, about what to expect when you go on mainnet. Is you will spend a bunch of money on fees. I probably spent more on chain fees than I've ever spent, because I'm playing around with Lightning, making a bunch of channels and seeing what it's like. Normally what I'm doing is hodling or making the occasional transaction, and the fact that I have Lightning that means that I can now play around with all these cool different apps and send money to people super instantly and easily. So I think we'll actually create more fees in aggregate. But the one thing I would say is that the chain, if they want to continue to be a competitive area for people to spend their money on, they should, the miners and the people who are interested in fees going up, they should be actually trying to improve the capabilities of the chain. They shouldn't just let all the innovation belong to Lightning. They should say, let's get simplicity on there. Let's get all sorts of cool features on the chain that Lightning can't take, and there can be some kind of differentiation there.
Can you run a Lightning node over Tor?
The Tor support, I think, is not
It's merged, yes.
It's merged. Okay, so yes, of course, yes, you can do that. Yeah.
And I just have one more question. I got a blank empty hard drive here. If anybody has a copy of the Bitcoin and Litecoin blockchains, they can give me that I can pick up in a day or two or something. Be great.
All right. Question up here.
Is there any liquidity concerns that users have to be aware of? So I was just trying to think of, you have to be somewhat aware of your own personal balance with your channel, right? To be constantly available for just even providing transactions, right? Or receiving them. Like if I have between you and I a channel for 1 Bitcoin, I can't expect to receive 10 Bitcoins through the Lightning network, correct?
That's right. There's a capacity there. So what it tends towards is that there's a natural differentiation between when you use Lightning and when you use the chain. So you use the chain when you're using high value amounts, because the chances are less that you're going to have appropriate capacity on the Lightning network. And you use the off-chain more when you're using very small amounts, because the amount that you're going to pay in fees on the chain are going to be a high proportion of the amount that you're just using to buy coffee. And you need to think, it's not like you can plug into the Lightning network and then you can make one channel and then that's it. I mean, the Lightning network is a peer-to-peer network. You're connecting to a bunch of random people all over the world. So if you connect to some random person, the chances are he might turn off his computer, or he might, close all his channels. That's just some person you don't know. So it's something you need to think about, going out. And then if you want to receive money, what you need is people committing funds in your direction, because we have this two-sided balance. And that's one thing that submarine swaps can try to help with, we can say, I'll do a trade, so you send some money off chain and I'll send some money on chain, and those will be linked together, and that way I'll get the type of balance that I want in my channel, and then I'll give you a little fee, although it probably won't be too much because there's no risk and we're trading the same currency. Or we can use a different currency, or there's all sorts of new things that are going to be added to the Lightning daemons to make it easier to deal with capacity issues. That's just going to be an ongoing thing that'll get better.
So I saw that you have a lot of tools developed for the Lightning network. Are these specific to LND, or did they work with other Lightning implementations?
Well, so you can pay them using other implementations, but they all are based on using LND. And also the library that I have, npm library, where you can just npm install, that also only works with LND. As far as the overall universe of apps go, there's pretty good number of people who are running on C Lightning, like Satoshi's Place is running on C Lightning, but there are also lots of apps on LND, and everything interoperates.
Great.
Thanks for a very interesting talk. You spoke of instant settlement. What might be the current median time, and how low? How low do you plan to get it down to say it's instant settlement?
It goes currently LND. If you have a direct channel, it goes faster than my database would write. All that is actually happening when the channel is updated is you're just passing a signature back and forth and updating your own single database. So it can happen, but this potential slowdowns can happen if you are going over multiple hops. So let's say you are not using a direct channel. You're using a channel that's 5 hops away. In that case, each hop can introduce latency. You could say hop 1, we're going to give him 5 seconds. And then the other thing that can introduce latency is that you never know when you're sending a payment whether it will succeed or not. Because you don't know if the hops you're going to try to use are actually online or have enough capacity or want to do it. So in that case, you just have to try it. You'll always just have to try the route and see if it works. If it doesn't work, you try another route. If it doesn't work, you try another route. So the time is very highly specific on like who you're sending to, how many hops you're using, the quality of the hops. Like what you want to do is you want to judge the quality. So you want, like, this is currently not in the code base, but you want to remember, like, oh, this hop is a good hop. He's always doing it really quickly along this route. So I want to use him in the future. So currently, you can try out the maximal speed by just doing a one node to one node, and it will be like maybe 10 milliseconds or super fast.
Thanks. Related to that, you spoke of log time. Is there a default time lock, and also you spoke of hops? Is there a maximum number of hops allowed or something?
I think the maximum is 20, although I've only ever seen like 7 or 8, just off the top of my head. And the log time is also, like, currently people are using conservative values, but you can override the values to a certain degree. And there's multiple log times. So there's log times like how many HDLCs have log times, and there's log times in the individual channels. So really there's a wide range of values of log times. And I'd say that the longest you probably have to wait would be like 2 weeks. And the shortest time you probably have to wait would be like 10 blocks.
Alex, another question. There's been a lot of outrage by users not really being private with their payments, enabling companies such as Chainalysis to track and easily cluster entities on blockchain. I'm wondering how Lightning Network protects users' privacy and if it has any weaknesses.
Yeah, I think privacy is one feature that like the Lightning Network doesn't have right out of the gate. So there's a lot of features that could be included. So one feature could be that instead of the channels appearing as channels when they go to the chain, what if they just appeared as a normal send to a normal public key hash? So that's something that actually is in the works, but is not currently there. So currently, you can have people clustering, and there's even more than clustering. When you run a Lightning node, you're actually advertising, potentially. Like if you want to be a router, you're advertising, here's my alias, here's my IP address, here's the money that I've got in channels, here are the channels who I have it with. So there's a lot of public information that can be used for data mining. but the fundamental property of Lightning is that nobody else really has to know about the transaction details between you and the peer, or you and the hops. And the basic hop design is all encrypted. So when one hop gets a payment, he doesn't necessarily know where it came from, he doesn't know where it's going, and in the future they can add ways to even make the secret vary from hop to hop, so he can't just compare notes about what the secret is with other hops. I would say it's probably going to mess up some chain analysis companies because they probably don't have logic that's specifically made for Lightning. And they're probably not that's not where the majority of the capital is going right now. But in the future, I think we'll need to improve the privacy characteristics to. Otherwise, you will be the same subject of clustering that you are currently when you use a Bitcoin network.
Yeah, I have a question about the secrecy between, you have a secret word that you use with the node to release the money from a buyer and a seller. That kind of sounds to me like an escrow in a way, because it's a third party. And I'm wondering, is there any way that could be, if the person could be forced to give up a secret in the middle, or if it's like you're absolutely certain using that kind of a transaction where you have a secret between two parties with a third party in between, that somebody could be forced to diverge that secret.
The people in the middle, they don't know the secret in the normal case, right? So the secret actually was generated by the person that you're sending money to. And if you ever get back the secret, that means that the payment has been sent. So what happens if, let's say that the guy on the other end, he just gives up his secret or he uses a bad secret. One limitation of Lightning is he can't reuse an invoice because it has the same secret. The secret's already known to the route. So that's why you can't send it again when using the same hashes, because the secret is known. Although this is something that you might run into if you use LND, you can actually currently send to the same invoice, and it's not a secure mode. If you know the secret, then the problem is really the receiver. So the receiver needs to keep that secret to himself, so that the payment, which first locks in. So first, when you make a payment, all of these HTLCs, they're signed and they're ready to go. And the only thing that needs to unlock one HTLC is knowledge of the secret. And then the way that Lightning keeps it off chain is it just tells the secret to the next peer. But if it doesn't tell the secret to the next peer, then it doesn't get paid, right? So it wants to tell it to the next peer.
And I heard that you might have a POS system that a vendor can use, like a retail person or a bar.
Sure, yeah. I'm happy to, if you send me an email, I'm happy to set you up with that. It's very easy to use. You just type in how much you want to charge, and it brings up a Lightning invoice. And this is actually, though, a custodial service. So it uses a YALS.org node. So people can, but it can be useful because people can test it out before they come. So they can say, I'm just going to buy a 1 penny article on YALS to make sure that I can actually pay. And then when they come, they know they can already pay.
I'll talk to you about it.
Sure, sounds great.
It's already being used somewhere.
So that is already in use at this cafe called Backyard Brew in Palo Alto. So if you want to go down there and buy a cup of coffee, they already have it, or if you want to try it out.
What's the hardware?
So it's still using the YALS node. So he doesn't have his own node set up. So I just give him the money out of band.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Oh.
Hi Alex, I'm sure one of the most commonly asked questions that you might heard is, the price of crypto or Bitcoin is so volatile. What makes it rational for a vendor to willingly take the Bitcoin and just assume that the value will stay what they think it is? I'm just curious what your response is.
Well, I think that is definitely the biggest challenge. I don't think that the challenge is can we make it fast, or can we make it cheap, the fees. We have to answer the question of why do I want to pay with crypto? And so the best answer we have right now is I want to pay with crypto because I believe in crypto. I believe in Bitcoin because I want those properties. I want to have minimize my counterparty risk. And so I want to live in that world, and I want to keep that money. And then the merchant wants to accept it because they want to get paid in that amount. They want to get paid in that type of. They want to get paid in what the customer wants to spend. But it's a limited use case, and it's best on the internet. One thing that Lightning can do is actually the thing that I was talking about with relating the fiat value into the invoices. So the invoice that the merchant creates, it doesn't have to match what the wallet of the buyer has. So that if the merchant wants to receive Bitcoin, he wants to accept payments from somebody who's using Litecoin, in the future, or using submarine swaps, that can actually happen, and he doesn't have to add support for all sorts of different coins. And you can even think of fiat as a certain type of coin. So he can generate these kind of fiat invoices that are like pegged to the price of fiat, and he can, still be essentially receiving fiat, even though the people on the other side are routing through a swap provider because they want to hold on to Bitcoin and they don't want to deal with fiat. But the same problem will still remain. Is like, do people want to have reduced counterparty risk? Are they interested in this world where we don't have to like put our money with PayPal or use a centralized provider to see all of our payments and block our payments down? So that's like the core message that has to like drive that adoption.
All right, I think that's all the questions we have for Alex. Everyone, please, a big round of applause for Alex. Thank you so much for your insight. There is still some beer left. I think there's even some pizza left. We are here till around 9. We want everybody out 5 before then. So lots of time to hang out, maybe talk to people you saw give lightning talks, ask out some questions, and just sort of get to know everybody. Thanks so much for coming out. I'll see you all next month.
I'll tell you why I think